Hi, today we have Venkat with us. Hi Venkat, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, Sahili.
So Venkat used to work as creative head in an advertisement agency. So how was your journey as a creative head in that agency?
So I kind of, I got into the business quite by accident. So when I was bumming around in college, being the backbench boy and the guy who used to hang out with all the malcontents in the college, I think in my second year, one of my seniors, she approached me and she wanted me to host the college, what do you call, festival with her. So I said, no, I don't think I had the chops to do it. And but then she said that, I asked her, why did you approach me like I was some loser hanging out with my friends? She said, I've heard you talk and I think you have a very interesting turn of phrase and nice way of talking. So I was kind of flattered. So when I said, no, but I don't think I have the confidence to go on stage and do this. So she said, so you should get into advertising, you should become a copywriter. I didn't even know what a copywriter was then. So after I finished my graduation and I was again bumming around for a year, not knowing what to do, then I remembered what she said. And then I dug up the yellow pages and found some agencies and approached. And I got into the business. But it's been a blast actually. So to answer your question, I've thoroughly enjoyed it because it's a creative side and I have both what do you call, I like to sketch also and I like words, I like language, I like writing, so it was kind of perfect. So I found it very immersive, very challenging, very intoxicating also. Yeah, so it's been a good
And how long did you work in this ad agency?
That particular agency, 1 year, but in this business I've done maybe around 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, including maybe a 2.5 years sabbatical in between, but yeah, around 22 years. Yeah.
And since last 1 year you're traveling?
Yeah, I think COVID changed a bit because I was in Bombay for the longest time and then I lost my brother-in-law, so I went and stayed with my sister for 3-4 months to help her get over it. And from there, I think the very fact that you are away from office, working from home, and I think gradually it kind of changed your perspective and suddenly kind of quit my job and decided to travel. It's better to do the things that you plan for after retirement when you have the energy to it. Yeah. So yeah, last 1 year we just packed up all our belongings and loaded our car with our stuff, whatever stuff we could carry, and then we've been on the road since.
And since last 1 year also making lots of poetry, also making sketches, I have seen that. That's the reason So let me summarize a little bit. You work as a creative head in an ad agency. That's a creative process. And then you took a break, traveling. At the same time, you are also making more arts, more writings. So that's another creative process.
Yeah.
So it's most of the time you are engaged into a lot of creative process.
Yeah.
And when you are earlier involved into this business and now as an independent individual you are doing, what's the difference? How as a creative person you are enjoying that?
Got it. So see, at some point you can't separate it, but also at some level it's very different. But having said that, what I've been even when I was a creative person in an agency, I used to do it. I used to write on the train. I used to call it the commute writing. Suddenly it started happening. These short poems used to, appear fully formed in my head, and I just was writing it. My job was to write it before I could forget it, right? So it started happening maybe after 5, 6, 7 years of working. And it used to give me great joy because at some point I would look at anything and on the train I would see a person reading a newspaper, or I would see some guy picking his nose, anything would trigger, Suddenly you get a thought, or I'd see 2 stockbrokers or 2 people who trade in stocks sitting and discussing. And the fact I would be morbidly, curiously listening to it, and there's a part of the brain trying to pick up a tip oh, it's getting greedy, right? Graspy. So I would write a poem about that, how the bystanders would over here hoping it will make them. So these kind of things would trigger, and it just started happening, and I really enjoyed it. It was like a creative high. And then I did that, and then I took a 2.5 year sabbatical about 8 years back because I wanted to also sketch. And I had this thought that some of these poems I could also illustrate because earlier when I'm in college I used to, one of the reasons I didn't become an artist was I didn't know what to sketch.
Okay.
You can sketch, but what do you sketch, right? And suddenly the thought of illustrating these poems came to me, and I said maybe I can do it. So I spent 2.5 years training myself to paint. And I learned how to paint watercolor, and I started doing this project called Word from the Brink, where I took some of my poems and illustrated them.
I have seen that. All these are. I thoroughly enjoy. I must say. I mean, it was really nice.
So then I got back into work, and the second phase of work got too consuming. You know, I didn't get the time. After that, I never got the time to do the writing. It's not just the time. Also, you also need that energy or that spark. You know, and somehow I think that is where my love affair with the advertising business started fading, because I was kind of doing it like a duty, like a job, you know, and which is why I think the creative spark also in me kind of, so I think this quitting was a good thing, because firstly you're kind of, you embrace your fear, you don't know what's ahead, you just kind of go, right? And then as you go to beautiful places, you stay there for a month or two, and slowly your brain has nothing to do, and it just, after the healing, it just returns to your ground zero is doing creative stuff, you know, and your brain is always working, thinking of thoughts and looking at stuff, and you know, so that started happening naturally, the writing part. And the art part, of course, I need to kind of spend more time in that direction, but for me, I see myself in the next few years devoting myself totally to that.
Okay, so we all know creativity. With creativity, the pain is involved into that. That as an artist, I feel that like without a certain kind of understanding about sufferings and without any pain, you won't start the process. I mean, for me, I know as a kid, I had to go through a lot of things, and I had experienced a certain amount of sufferings. And that somehow inspired me to create more. As a kid, I'm talking about my childhood. I have experienced certain things, and I didn't know how to express all those things. So I started creating more and more art. So I would love to ask you, is that same for you, or you just feel an urge, or how do you relate the term pain with your creativity?
So that's a very good question. At a general level, that is the notion, or that is the belief that pain, but I feel that is only half the story.
Of course,
yeah, because there are a lot of people who create out of sheer inspiration and love, and you know, without having been hurt or without going through a lot of pain in their life, people. So art is an expression of whatever beauty that they feel within, or see, or you know, or the world that they imagine. But in my personal case, it was usually connected with pain. I had a very, hard time growing up. So for me, I think I didn't realize it then, but it's like,
sometimes you don't do it consciously.
As in last couple of years, it occurred to me that for me, creativity was an escape from my miserable surroundings, you know.
Yeah,
so
for me, it's same. Yeah. That's what I was talking about.
So the thing is, I wouldn't try to translate the pain into something, because at one point the thought was, I always thought about this mollusk, you know, when it is irritated, when there's a sand inside and it's agitated and irritated, it creates a pearl around it. So for me, that turning your pain into pearl was always a personal motto, you know, I always thought about it. But having said that, you don't write about the pain as such, although I feel if I look back at my poetry, there's half of it is to do with dealing with my pain, or translating my pain, or you know, portraying it beautifully. And I realized that a lot of times that's what art does. When you listen to songs, you know, when you're on a heartbreak or when you're on a bender, you have this tendency to pick on one or two songs and listen to it on loop, and it has a cathartic effect. First, it kind of, you it literally pickles your brain in that pain. And then slowly it allows you to come out of it also. Just the fact that somebody else understands what you've been through or is able to capture it so beautifully. So that's part of the emotion of pain. So the expression of it, that a singer is able to capture that pain so beautifully, right? So that's one part. The other part is the fact that pain is just the thing that you're moving away from, and creativity is the escape. So you can revel in the beauty of things, and like I said, the randomness of life that you encounter. It's just so funny, it's just so interesting, it's just so insightful, it's just so moving. So you can your art can become a celebration of that, right?
Yes.
So while there is no pain in that, it is a movement away from your pain. It's you're escaping to a world that is away from your pain. So in my case, it's been at a core level. I think the reason I got into this, and that too was quite by accident, the exploration of the creative field. It was a move away from the pain, or an escape into this creative world where the brain would be kind of thoroughly engaged and intoxicated by the creative process and its outputs. And also, once there, then the thing was part of the creative work is about dealing with the pain or transforming the pain or understanding the pain. And part of it is just celebration of the beauty that you encounter.
So you just described very nicely how both things are related with the process of creativity. But today, what we're going to do, we're going to paint something or sketch something out of it. When we say the word pain, what comes to our mind?
Okay.
And then we'll see where it is going. I mean, we'll talk and we'll discuss more. First, only with the term pain.
Okay.
I can say a few things about my own experience. Like when I heard the word pain, both things come to my mind. One is physical pain, one is the mental one. Because in my life, I have suffered a lot because of my health. So pain only doesn't mean the sorrow and sadness we have been through. For me, just lying on the bed on your sickness, I can relate more with that also, because I have this experience and for a long time I had to go through it. So for me, it's kind of both. It's not this sufferings and sorrow, and also this physical illness. So okay, and now we'll do something and see. Okay, so let's show it to the camera. Yes. Now please describe us, like whatever you made.
Actually, I already spoke about this.
Yes.
And it's like a personal motto. This is a very badly drawn mollusk. I don't remember when I see the mollusk last.
Okay.
I hope it kind of looks like it. At least if you don't understand, there's a big fat word here saying mollusk. But basically it says, be like the mollusk, turn your pain into pearls. You know.
Oh, that's lovely.
It's a personal it's work for me, and because it allows you to transform your pain, right? It allows you to confront it, not feel bad about it or guilty about it, you know, and then actually take it and do something beautiful with it, and that leaves you with joy and the satisfaction of having done something beautiful. At the same time, it has taken your pain as the raw material and turned into it. Yeah. So
would you like to share some experience, like you have encountered certain kind of pain and then you turn into something beautiful? I would love to listen.
See, without having get into, then I'll have to kind of dig up some of my poetry and all that stuff.
Yes.
But I can give you someone else's poem. I had a very, tough childhood, hard time growing up. And it leaves a you think you've dealt with it, you think you processed it, and have moved on, and you discover many years later that again there are parts of you that have not processed the pain, or there are different facets to it which you hadn't realized, So it's literally like, it's not a one shot thing that you keep peeling like an onion, you keep peeling it and discovering new layers. In fact, this last 3 months of retreat, I've kind of uncovered a whole bunch of different aspects to the pain, right? So, but having said that, I think when I was in college, I went through a very suicidal phase. So, when I say college, it was pre-degree actually. So I was in Manipal, and there used to be this place called Endpoint. I'd go there and sit under the river down there, and I would, just often sit and contemplate how beautiful it would be to, just go and embrace the water. In my head, it was, I was phrasing it like that, although it was a euphemism for something else altogether. Yeah. And I've sat there so many times, and of course it wasn't serious where I attempted anything, but it was a solid contemplation of it.
No, I can totally relate with that.
Yeah.
I think a major part of my life I had done this. Like, it's not that I made a serious attempt, but I contemplated.
Yes, yes.
So,
it's a way of dealing with it, because it's a water, because it's a movement away from the pain, right? It's like, you kind of the futility of it, and you're just, at some level, you're just tired of the pain,
Yes.
And so that was the thing, but I'll tell you how the pearl happened, right? So a few years later, and I got out of that phase, and I discovered this whole, when you're in college, you kind of discover a whole different set of influences and friends and new culture and stuff like that. So I had a great time in college. Graduation and post-graduation. In post-graduation, I was reading this book of poetry by Langston Hughes, who's a black poet, a jazz poet, one of the, you could call him the poet laureate of America, along with Walt Whitman. I was going through it, and I really liked it. He used very spoken language, and there's a certain, he would write in the nightclubs, and the jazz was playing, so there's that rhythm in his writing, and effortless, it's like normal spoken stuff. So there's a very short poem he wrote. It's called Suicide's Note. The calm, cool face of the river asked me for a kiss. And it was like, whoa, I had goosebumps, and I realized this man captured what I went through for those 2 years in such beautiful. I kept, I was thinking about it in a very physical way, but he captured it in such a artful and beautiful way, right?
Yeah,
I got a tattoo. I got a tattoo. After that, I went and saw the calm, cool face of the river.
I remember whenever I read some poetry and probably see some beautiful paintings, I feel the same way that I fail to capture it. What I have experienced, maybe I didn't capture it in terms of words or in visual medium, but some people did. Some people, some poets or some artists had done this, and then I realized probably we human beings had gone through kind of similar kind of pains in our life, and some of us express in different way, and some of us write in words, some of us make some beautiful paintings, but that's the reason I feel one thing is common, that is pain. We have gone through certain kind of pain, and that's the reason. And sometimes you just encounter it, and you just feel, oh, I have been there, I have felt that. So, and that's kind of beautiful feeling altogether. It's not that you're suffering by that time when you're seeing this, and the way you just described that you heard these 2 lines, and then instantly you felt that.
Yeah.
So that gives you goosebumps, and okay, I have been there, I know that, and someone wrote it for me. Sometimes feel like, okay, I felt that, and someone did that, someone wrote it for me.
Yeah.
So that's
it feels hugely, what do you call it? It's like a load lifted, off your back. And suddenly the very fact that there's understanding, there's acceptance, the fact that there are more people, that you're not alone.
Yes,
there are
yes,
more
yes,
people
yes,
in it.
yes.
And then there's a sheer art aspect of it, because I feel that it's one thing people talk about being an artist, being creative, and because of popular culture and the tropes, there are the creative types and the non-creative types, and it's considered like one holy grail. But I fundamentally feel that what is common, I think the common ground is that your ability to feel something, your ability to appreciate beauty, right? And beauty could be like the physical beauty of it, or the act. Somebody can live very beautifully. An act could be beautiful, but to be the capacity to be moved, that's the common ground, right? Now after that, some people are able to translate it into words, actions, or art that can capture it, that can further move people. But I think that's the common ground. When people say they're not creative, it doesn't matter. I think at the core level, if you're capable of being moved, that's the human thing that we're talking about. And that is what moves you to create work also. That's what moves you when you see other people's work also. I think the ability to feel and be moved, I think that's the main thing.
I would like to share my recent experience. One of my friends was just sharing her experiences with me. I didn't have the same experience in my life. It was completely different. My life and her life is totally different. But you rightly mentioned that ability to feel moved, and I felt that. Actually, I felt that. I felt her pain, and then I came back to my room and I made something, and then I started hesitating a bit whether I should tell her what she would feel, that she was sharing her story and I made that. But eventually I did, and I told her, like, okay, it's not that I'm using your story, or it's nothing like that. I felt it deeply. So sometimes I think being empathetic also a kind of blessing.
Yeah. It is a blessing actually. It is a blessing, because that's what connects you with people. That's what you're able to process other people's pain and pleasures, and feel it and also process it. There are a couple of examples that revealed to me actually. I mean, this is something that I've thought about quite a bit. There's I don't remember the name of the tennis player now. I think it was Pat Cash, if I'm not mistaken. An Australian guy. And I think he won some Grand Slam. And he kind of went mental, he went berserk. And he climbed the stands like a monkey. And I think his mom was sitting there, and he went and hugged her. And it was such a joyful scene. Even now when I describe it, I feel a lump in my throat. It's like, it moved me to tears. And I'm just sitting and wondering, why am I sitting and crying? this ape go and climb there. I'm just sitting, how, And another thing, there's this one of these videos doing the rounds. It went one of these viral clips where this guy, he gets out of his tent, I think, and he sees a rainbow, and then he sees a second rainbow, and he's like mouthing gibberish, he's incoherent, like when baboon is going on making sounds, oh my god, and it is like endless, like 2 or 3 minutes or even longer maybe. And at some level, there's part of me that's saying that, shut up, you fool, just enjoy the double rainbow. And part of me is, feeling, oh fuck, why am I not feeling what he's feeling? I wish I could be there, It's really craving that feeling that of being moved, I wish I could be as moved as him. And at the end of the day, I was moved by his behavior under the rainbow, right? But the thing is, that's when I realized that it's so infectious, The thing is, and I just realized it's the need to feel.
Yes.
You're relating to it because you're enjoying the fact that he's able to feel that much, and he's able to express it so unabashedly, not hold back. I said, otherwise you're always saying, oh fuck, there's a crowd here and I need to, I'll hug my mom later. But this guy's like, absolutely, I don't care who's there. He just went up there and hugged his mom, and it was such a joyous thing. So I said, that's so pure, That purity is what you're after.
Yes. Okay, so now I'm going to share what I have sketched. It's probably, I have painted my experience, nothing new and no messages there. It's like I'm just lying down in my bed, and it's the pain for me, not being able to do anything, not being able to paint, not being able to sing or playing instruments, that's really painful experience for me. So whenever I heard the word pain, this scene come to my mind, that I am lying down in my bed all alone, and that I never enjoyed. Of course, I don't think anyone could enjoy that. So yeah, that's what I have.
So what do those triangles represent?
All those afflicted emotions while you are just lying down in your bed and you have nothing to do productive. Then I personally feel when you are not creating or not doing anything, it's very difficult to train your mind in such a way that only positive emotion you can cultivate. A lot of negative things will come eventually. That's what I've experienced. Then you start thinking, oh, my friend had done this thing for me. Okay, she was not really good to me. She was mean to me. All those things are coming. And as a young kid, I know your mind is not trained that much. You don't know how to control it. It's keep coming, and that's not a soothing feeling. So I don't want to be there anymore, of course. And that's what I understand by the term pain, because when you are physically not fit, the mental state also somehow hampered, that I have experienced. So for me, it has no message.
No, it does actually, because it's pretty interesting, because before you explained it, I knew of course we drew about pain, so and the pose out there, that's very clear, in a sense it's a very graphically, it communicates very clearly what the fact that there's a person who's alone and who's in pain and who's curled up womb-like in bed. But those triangles, I found it very interesting the way I interpreted it, because you could interpret it as that's your afflictions, or you can interpret it it's the shattered heart, and whatever the heck. But in my head it was like I saw those pieces it's like forming a dream or something beautiful.
Oh, that's good. That's what you call mental attitude.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about pain, I'm just talking to the word pain, and you are thinking ahead of it. I guess.
I just assumed. I'm saying it could be it's not about thinking ahead also. I think it's a function of what the artist intends and what the viewer takes away at some level.
No, viewer is very much optimistic. I must say, he just saw and said, oh, that's something beyond it, and I'm just talking to that's what we call mental abuse.
I also look at it as the way you put it. It's kind of very nice, because those triangles and all. No, it's a very artful way of putting it. Right, just showing it. So I think that's the whole point of it, because I've seen art that's dealing with pain that also causes you pain, and I don't like that kind of art. It causes, just looking at it makes you feel depressed. And I'm not saying it doesn't have a place in the world, to each his own. But for me personally, it doesn't work for me, because I don't. There's a very nice quote about art. Said art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comforted. Art should disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. So if you're in a comfort zone, then art should be provocative. It should move you into places that you've been avoiding or you hadn't considered. So in our case, largely where we kind of keep moving between states. There are times where you're really comfortable. You say, okay, fine, I've dealt with it. I've put stuff behind me. Now let me just coast. That's where you're seeking to be comfortable, or you're comfortable. And there's a part where you're already disturbed, right? So art has a role to play in both cases, right? It's not one role that it has 20,000 different roles. When I see art inspired by pain, if it is dealing with it in a nice manner, or shows you a way out, or captures the story of it being processed and something good coming out of it, that kind of works for me.
No, for me, I can tell it's not all the time going beyond. Not all the time. Sometimes, yes, not all the time. Sometimes, like I just wanted to. It is. That's it. That's the story. Nothing is beyond that, and nothing is something is creating that. It is. I just want to say that.
Yes.
Sometimes, like you remember this painting? What's the name? This famous painting, Scream. Yeah, you can feel the anxiety just by looking at it. I mean, you don't have to see it. Just look at it. You can feel there's a lot of anxiety to it. So sometimes, like it is, that's it. That's my story, and I don't have anything more to say. Sometimes I feel that's a healing process for me.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, that's a
Fair enough.
healing. That's it. Sometimes, like if I use the term joy, like if I use the term joy, lots of red balloons comes to my mind. I don't know why. I love to play with balloon and or teddy bear. I mean, that gives me joy and a very childish joy. But that's it. Nothing beyond it, and that's my story.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like I personally feel like artists know where to put a full stop, not what to add more. So
There's a
that's
very beautiful quote by Jackson Pollock. Somebody, some cheeky reporter asked him, "How do you know when a painting is finished?" Because you know Jackson Pollock's painting, right? It's like it's the process, the drip, right? And you could very well say the painting's finished now, or it could be finished 3 days later, right? So it was a very cheeky question. Somebody, it's like baiting him. So when he asked, "How do you know when a painting's finished?" So Jackson Pollock answered, "How do you know when you're finished making love?" It's so beautiful, But actually, speaking of Jackson Pollock, see, the point is not to make it unreasonably optimistic. What I was trying to say is not to get the red balloon into a painting. That's not what I was trying to say. If there was pain, then it is pain. But like Jackson Pollock also, he kind of, I think, literally drank himself to death, or he was like, car crash, very violent death. But his process, or even a Van Gogh for that matter, when he was in that madhouse in the end, when he was painting the stuff, he wasn't trying to be unduly optimistic. Even Jackson Pollock, I think they were just capturing their pain. It's like cathartic. It was like, I think they couldn't help it. There's another quote that comes to mind. Talent does what it can, genius does what it must. They were dealing with the must of it. The fact that pain was there and it was finding expression. So, but that expression itself is so beautiful. That's what I meant. When I say, I'm saying, no, don't give me a message saying that, okay, pain will go away or it can transform. But the very act of expressing the pain or the capturing of the pain itself is so beautiful. That's what I meant.
Would you like to sign your painting?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Good fun, actually.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your experience.
No, I had fun too. It's like it's good, these kind of questions and these sessions where it's kind of clarifying what you have been through and understanding somebody else's perspective, and it puts a light on your thoughts. So it's very good. Thank you, actually.
Thank you.